Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is Christina Rydell, your host, and today I welcome you to this place where we gather to reimagine the way we and the world work from the inside out by marrying together the intersection of well-being, wisdom, and leadership. I am excited to be here with you today as we drop into a kind of episode I feel like we've been doing here for over a decade. Actually, I know we've been doing this kind of episode for over a decade that's all about WTF, what's going on, where are we at, where have we been, and oh my God, where are we going? In the past, I've named these episodes things like feminine wisdom for intense times, or staying sane and centered in chaotic times. And we are still 10 years later after starting this podcast, we are still here. And as I think it's the Eddie Murphy song goes, the heat is on. Do you all remember that? I can't remember. I just keep hearing it in my head. I think it's like from some movie from the 90s. But the heat is on. And here's the name of this particular episode. As I sat down and kind of tuned in, I've actually been tuning in for weeks. I'll just wanted to say to you all, for those that are listening here live, it's actually been 2 months since I sat down and tuned in and pressed play to speak with you all. But Feminine Power Time, and you are always in my field. And as you all know, I have been doing different things, and I will share more about that as we go through. And I needed to make some space for those new things to emerge. And so I've been sitting and waiting and sitting and almosting, and then today was the day. And the clarity was that this is the frame for our talk today. Release, root, rebel, to reveal the way through this intense turning time. So the way this is going to roll is we're going to use that construct because we work in the power of 3 here at Feminine Power Time. I won't talk all about the feminine power of 3, but trust me, for those of you who know that what we do here, this is where we work with the mystical and the material plane, the intuitive and the intellectual, the feminine and the masculine. We don't shy away. We don't call it woo-woo, we call it wisdom, because woo-woo just diminishes the depth of wisdom we have for ourselves at this time. And that's part of what the systems that don't want to change and the people that don't want the systems to change, that want to remain in control, would love for us to do. But in my experience in the last 20 years is that when shit gets intense and things get wavy gravy and it can feel a little bit like we're in a windstorm, or we're coming back up against challenges that we've been facing again and again and again, the only way to truly break through is to go through the mystical and then bring the mystical into the material. If we just go through the material, which is super important, we can't just live in, the higher dimensions and expect, well, I'll just, meditate under a tree and be all peaceful and then everything will manifest. It doesn't work like that. We have to, if you think of it like a power spectrum, like a harmonizer, which is one of the symbols that I use when we're talking about power. If you put those two things, the mystical and the material, one on each side, those two things harmonize together, just like intellect and intuition, just like surrendering and strategizing, just like stillness and swiftness. I mean, there's so many different power spectrums that we put together. And so mystical and material is one of them. I noticed over the years that some people, they're really great at the material level. They can just make stuff happen. They have the resources they need. They can create stuff. They're super tuned in on that 3-dimensional reality and can have a lot of success there. And that gets you far. I mean, it can get you pretty far, but it can only get you far on so many levels. I was just watching a movie actually the other day. I'm watching a series of movies right now where they have gone around the world and talked with indigenous wisdom peoples who were colonized all around this world and genocide all around this planet for, a long time, thousands of years, but more specifically, we can bring it back to when Western civilization decided that it should be able to take the resources of the people in all of these different places. I'm not going to give you a history lesson. You all know what I'm talking about. But I'm watching each of these movies. There's 11 of them. And to really witness what's happened to these people. I can't do everything about all of the things, but I can witness the truth of what has happened here on Turtle Island, as they call it. Australia is what I watched yesterday. And time again, they talk about how when you take a people from their culture, you take away a language, you take away all of these things, which in many ways all of us are part of because we have been divorced from the feminine, from nature, from intuition, from all of these systems that have made us believe that even if you've been out of the systems or even if you've been working, quote unquote, on yourself, we're still all have these deep imprints inside of us that keep us from truly understanding and embodying our true and full power. And what I watched in the movie yesterday, they're talking about a soccer star who had gotten to the top of the soccer world in Australia, and he was First Nations person, and he finished the soccer career, was on lots of drugs to kind of manage his way through that, and then realized he was diagnosed with a mental illness, and eventually found his way back to his first peoples and realized that the sickness started in his spirit. Not in his mind. His mind and the mental things that were happening were an outpicturing of lots of things, but the real dis-ease was in the spirit. And that understanding of wisdom is prevalent all around the world in all of the different wisdom traditions. I can speak that for myself. I had a disease of the heart, dis-ease of the spirit, although you never would have known that if you had met me when I was in my 20s, because I was doing all of the things. And thank God the universe woke me up and said, yeah, we don't have time for you to just stay in this, physical, material reality success. We need for you to open up your eyes and see even more and go into the places that scare you, go into the places that you've had struggle, go into the places that you've felt the deepest hard stuff of human emotions, whether it's shame or rejection or abandonment. I mean, this is deep stuff. You're like, really, Christine? This is where you're starting? I'm turning off this. I don't have this. Y'all, I never know where I'm going to start because I just sit down and I make my diagram. I've been thinking about you all, and I just knew I needed to do this, wanted to do this before I leave for a trip out to California that is very much in alignment with what I'm talking about today, because I'm having my own resurgence and reemergence and following the same path. And that's what I do here. I sit down and I press the play button and it comes out as it does. And the reason I'm sharing this is that if we go in through the mystical, which means opening our hearts, opening our somatic intelligence, trusting that the practices we do to create space and breath and connection, that instead of needing to have a fully logical plan, we're tuned into our crazy wisdom. And for all of you that have read Overwhelmed and Over It, you all read this in chapter 1. If you haven't read Overwhelmed and Over It and you don't have the book, please get it and read the first chapter where we shift out of the imprint of do, be, and have it all, the banana one that goes up the escalator, and we move over. You'll see a person, a woman in this case, but this tracks for men or women, a woman, and she's standing there knowing that, and the imprint is choose what's right for you. I know myself. I trust myself, I define success for myself, and I make choices that are aligned for me. But if we're not aligned, body, mind, heart, and spirit, we can't make choices that are aligned for us because we're making choices from these systemic imprints. And what we're seeing around us right now is kind of framing up our conversation for today and why I chose release, root, and rebel is it's kind of an overlay on the sacred transformation triangle that I've talked about for many years over many different episodes. I'll put a link into the video post on my website for those of you that are new to this. But that the sacred transformation is going through transformation from a place of to create wholeness without violence to self or others. That's what happens when you put the word sacred in front of it. And this has been happening for years. And I keep coming back to it because it is the orientation map for how we go through this. What we are experiencing right now is not a surprise. And I'm going to keep coming back to this whenever I feel called to drop in and do these episodes with you, because I have to remind myself of this. And it's not a surprise because, well, it's been prophesized by lots of different traditions, not in the like fire and brimstone, although they do have that has its own situation going on over there. I mean, like this knowing that the world cannot continue to work like it's worked because it's not working. And it hasn't worked for thousands of years. Whether you trace this back to the Roman Empire, you go back before that, you could take it back to the Industrial Revolution. What we're seeing right now, it's like all of the things, especially in America, but this is happening across the world. America is just holding the epicenter of this is what the shadowy, ugly stuff that is underneath this other underbelly, which is not the best of humanity, but is the greed and the domination and the generational wounding that happens over and over and over that creates these distortions to this survival of the fittest, which is not true competition. We can talk about that later, not today, but at a different time, about conquering, about ownership, like this is my land, this is not your land, to let, all of those things that are, I think they're underpinned in greed and scarcity at the same time. So what we're seeing is an outpicturing of that. And we've talked about this forever too, right? You can't change what you can't see. And so what's happening, one way to look through this is to look at it through the lens of it's happening and it's going to keep happening and the fire is going to keep turning up until people start to wake up. I can hardly believe we live in a culture where the entity and force that wants to continue to dominate has been able to take awakening and make it into something that's bad. But I can remember when I didn't want to wake up. Can you remember a time in your life where maybe you resisted waking up and really looking at what was happening and what was calling you? I mean, there's ways probably it's still happening. I know I'm still in some resistance to things. I'm like, well, maybe I could do it a different way. Well, maybe it's like, no, really look. And so one very simple thing you can do is like, don't turn away, but don't also absorb everything that's happening. So like, for example, for me, I'm not taking in very much media. I hardly ever have before either, but because the images are just like way, 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 way too much. So I read a couple things here and there, but I don't watch a lot of videos. But for this thing I can do is I can watch these videos about the indigenous people around the world and how, and I've known this. I mean, I'm very connected to the indigenous people and the taking of children and taking away a language and taking away a culture. And it was on purpose. This happened. This wasn't an accident. It's like whenever I hear the word, the Cultural Revolution of what happened in China, I just I've always wanted to scream because it's a cultural genocide and it's on purpose. So I can watch that. It's hard sometimes, so what's that for you? And this is kind of where we're going to go today, is that there are things that we can do that are very much in that rebellious, harmonic defiance kind of way, that it doesn't have to be, it may be for you to go straight at what's going on, but most of us, that's not our part. And it doesn't mean that we just turn off. It means we come into presence, we stay connected to presence, and then we do our part. But we cannot do that if we ourselves are not sustained and we ourselves are not also doing the alchemy on the inside. Are you still there? I'm just making sure. Like maybe I should go backwards. Let me take a sip of my water. I guess this is what happens when I wait for 2 months to press play and sit down and light my candles. I have 2 candles lit. One is called True Self, and the other candle is called Patience. And in the center is a pack of flower seeds I have that has a blue monarch butterfly on it, or I don't know if the blues are monarchs, but they're blue. And it says grow gratitude seeds this year. And it's sitting next to a jade plant I have that also has seeds all over the container that's holding it, and a compass for the 8 petals of a harmonized life, and the compass of orientating us. So my intention here for us is to help give you some orientation points to have a way to move through this. I wanted to talk a little bit with you all about the beautiful Joanna Macy in her book, Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In with Unexpected Resilience and Creative Power. I've posted on it on the Feminine Wisdom Cafe. And if you don't know who Joanna Macy is, I encourage you to get the book, Active Hope. I also have posted up on the Feminine Wisdom Way a video of her sharing prophecy. That's very much sacred rebel heart warriors. In the Buddhist tradition, it would be called the Bodhisattva, sometimes called the Shambhala warriors. And they are those of us who are here to, keep in our hearts the knowing that there is a better way, a brighter way, that the hearts of humanity in there are good. All humans are born with whole hearts, and that our capacity to keep connected to that as we go through this time is essential, and it's hard. So that's why I brought our map of release, root in, and rebel. But her book, and I think I'll save it for another time, but I'll just say swiftly, is that she talks about, and it's not just her theory, this is kind of a bigger theory that comes from different places, is that there are 3 responses to this time and 3 ways of stories of looking at it. One is business as usual, where people are just doing what they've always done because they really don't want to have to go in and do my perspective, the actual harder work that's on the inside. Much easier to focus on the outside or just, stay asleep. Business as usual. The great unraveling. Oh my God, everything is falling apart and we're doomed. We are doomed. It's like the Eeyore. And there's lots of evidence for that. You can see that whole reality every day, all day long on every news channel you want. Or the great turning. That we are actually in a turn. And we've talked a lot about this before, about time and time cycles and the yugas and yogic science. And in fact, we are in a 26,000-year turn. We have passed the bottom, but we're just coming up the top. And you can kind of liken that to a metaphor I like to use. It's like being on a motorcycle. I think of it as a passenger because I've never driven a motorcycle, but even if you haven't been on a motorcycle or you haven't driven as a passenger, just imagine like being on a mountain, a very big one, like say in Colorado somewhere, and you're going around those turns. Right? We've all driven on those turns. It could be anywhere in Australia, China. There's lots of mountains all over the place, but you're on that turn, and once you decide to take the turn, you have to just kind of keep going with the turn. I mean, once you see the turn happening, I suppose you could turn around and try to back up, but that's really hard because usually you're on a mountain and you're afraid you're going to fall off the cliff. So you kind of have to go around the turn. And once you start the turn, you have to lean into the turn. And you can't just throttle forward because you would fall, you would go off the cliff. You can't go in reverse. So all you can really do is go through the turn. And think of a time in your life where you hit a turn, like you knew whether you wanted it or not, whether it was a move, it was a job shift, it was a divorce, a breakup, some life event that you did not want to be in. And I suppose you could have gotten off your motorcycle and just stood on the side of the road, but eventually it would get cold, or eventually someone would hit you because you're on a mountain, right? So, and we kind of do that. We do stall sometimes for a bit, but then we get back on the motorcycle, and we continue. And as we're going around that curve, we have to be very present, right? Because if you're not present, you could, and my partner Noah's actually driven a motorcycle through the mountains of Colorado and other mountains. He's like, you hit a pebble or something you're not, careful of. He's like, you could have a spin out, maybe not a pebble, but you know what I mean. So we're like, we have to be really present. And so this practice of presence as we go through this turn is really important. And it's also really important to know that we're not alone on the mountain. Like, we're on our own bike, but there's other people. We can feel the other people coming behind us and going before that. We can't maybe see everybody, but maybe we can hear them, or maybe we can vibrationally sense them. So we're in this turn. And so just kind of, leaning into that, like, what turn might you be in? And then instead of pressing the throttle and not having that patience, that seems really important right now, or not having that, like, not being true to yourself. And this is where I'm going to take us in the first release, because this true to yourself piece is a big one for this turn. And let's just go there, shall we? Okay. So let's pretend that we're on our motorcycle, and we're going to first move through this passage, because we have these thresholds that we're moving through, which we've also talked quite a bit about in past conversations. That thresholds are, and I'm going to mix my metaphors here, but it seems important to share. Thresholds are, like, you could also think, if you don't want to be on a motorcycle, like, you're literally changing zip codes. You're elevating to another frequency. Just like on the mountaintop, right? We're going through this threshold. We're going higher. So humanity is going higher because we have to go higher. But you can't go higher and not recognize the past and release the past. And that is for both us individually as well as us collectively. So in the sacred transformation triangle, this would be on the bottom left. And that is, it's about releasing and healing. We have to release and heal the past. So, for example, that's what's happening. Like, as a culture, we have to acknowledge that these genocides and taking over of indigenous cultures by whatever you want to call it, Western civilization. I don't want to, it's like you could say, well, the Dutch did this, and the French did this, and the Romans did this, and yes, all those things. However, that's a consciousness that's on the planet that's happened. So now it's popped up all over the place, and then these things become normal. And then it creates our business structures. Like, you could look at how business is run. It's just business, and so we live in a culture where that's okay. And businesses can harm people or the planet as long as it's making a profit. In a culture that embraced and valued the safety of women and children and men and the health and life sustainability of all living things, that would never be the case. So that's where we can go. And there is already evidence of those things that's happening on the planet, and we'll get there in our rebel to reveal. But we can't just do that if we don't pause here and say, as a culture, these things have been happening for a long time. And it's not actually okay. And it's not about staying stuck in the past, but it's also, notice, like, how people want to erase history. And just think about that. Like, instead of getting mad, like, about it in a way you can't do anything about it, this is where the rebel to reveal starts to come in. It's like, I see why this is happening. And if you put your compassion glasses on, you could be like, there are people there that are in there that absolutely know what they're doing. Totally through the mystical lens, you look through it like that. Those people know exactly what they're doing, and they're manipulating and they're controlling. And there is a whole bunch of other people who are just in the spell, and they don't know they're in the spell. Have you ever been in a spell before with a friend or a job or a person? Like this happens, I was in a spell. I almost married the wrong person for all the wrong reasons because I was unwilling to go into my heart to see what was actually there. We've all had different spells in different ways. The spell of money, the spell of opportunity, the spell of, if you just do this one thing, you're going to get these many shares, whatever. So so when we look at this reveal to receive, there's two parts happening. One is the healing. So that's the we part of like acknowledging that. And then also for yourself, like what is in there that is either ripe for healing or is ready for healing. Because this is how culture gets created. And it's kind of sucks, but it's also very empowering. It's like, be the change you wish to see, right? And so this is what's so interesting about enlightenment or spiritual growth or personal growth or really just being present. We're never done. But it's not about having to like be in so much struggle that your nails are bleeding and you're starving yourself and all of those things. Like we get to grow from joy and grief. Harmonizing spectrum. Sad and mad. Compassion and conviction that I'm not condoning what's not okay with me. And so just taking a step back for a moment and kind of just noticing that, like, what am I being asked to release so that I can open to receive? Where are you being asked to release something that you might be gripping onto, that you might be looking the other way from? This could be past judgments. This could be relationships. This could be just things that you've created in the past. I'll give you a couple of examples. I've just spent the last week and a half, I have to move my website over, and this website is like one of those houses you just keep adding on to where you do renovations. So I've had the same platform and same theme of the website, even though it's changed and had different iterations and different colors and outfacings and all of that since 2014, and I have to move it over to a new theme. And so I have been going through all the pages, which at one time I think was like over 200. There were like 500 posts on there. There's like 13,000 images so that I can make a clean move because I'm moving zip codes, because I'm going around the island. I'm going around the mountain bend and planting all of the wisdom that I've culled for 20 years into different fields that I'm being called to work the next 20 years. One of those includes the Wiser Project, which you've heard me talk a little bit about working with girls and young adults from 8 to 28, because that's part of how I rebel to reveal is let me focus on how can we can support the generations who are coming to keep the wisdom they have and learn the tools that they need so that they don't end up having to figure that out at the age of 35 or 45, that we support the education of these humans when they're 8 to 28 so that they are integrated, they are discerning, they have access to their IQ, EQ, and SQ. That's part of my work in the world, but to do that, I have to go through my website, very material thing that I'm doing, but I'm doing it through the mystical. I'm looking back at all these things that I've done. I'm seeing former websites and blog posts, and I found I used to do a podcast, most of you probably don't know this, called Girl Talk, Taking It Deeper. This was back before there was even WordPress, so I don't know, like 2006 or something. And it was me and 2 other women, and we had a blog that had different generations asking one question, and we all answered. So we had like 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, all the way up to 60-year-olds. And I just found a whole bunch of those blogs, so I saved them. We called it Generation Wise. And so I'm excited to bring that into the Wiser Project. And so this is like this mystical material, right? That it brings me joy to do that versus like, oh, I gotta move this website over, whatever. And because I'm in relationship to the heart part of it and how it's part of my own evolution. Does that make sense, right? It's like the joy that comes, even though it's like I'm sitting there deleting images. And it's also brought up a bunch of stuff for me. Like it's brought up they're like 1 or 2 days. They're like, I just had to like take a Rilo health day because it was bringing up a heart day. Like it wasn't mental health. It was heart health that was affecting my mental thoughts. Because remember, the heart makes up the thoughts in the mind. And so I just needed to take a break and a spacer and let all the feels come up. And so you might be experiencing that now too. We're astrologically speaking, there's all kinds of crazy energy happening, but it's fire energy. And remember, you can use the catalyst that's happening as an alchemy for yourself. And so what is it that you know that you're being called to release that's going to open you to receive? I'm thinking of people I know with relationships. A good friend of a dear friend of mine has a spiritual teacher, mentor that is also part of a very physical practice as well, a martial arts practice. And that relationship has just ended, not on his account. And he's worked with the person since he was 14. And it's really hard because bringing up a lot of stuff. And so we should expect, stuff to come up. And or thinking of a conversation I recently had with one of the leaders that I coach, and she's often been the person who's like the stable, centered one, and has often been the lieutenant, the person I call to the left of maybe the president or the executive or the person 2 rungs or a rung above her in the rung world, in the hierarchical model. And she's really supported that person to rise. And she's very clear she doesn't want to just do that for the other person and not rise and expand herself. So we've been, working with that. And how do you release this part of like, I'm not going to sacrifice myself for the good of the whole or the good of the other, but I'm not going to swing over here and just be me. So there's this release to receive part, where it's like the me and the we gets to be together. And if it's something, just kind of as we're talking here, and maybe just let's take a breath. And just put your hand or a couple fingers on your heart. And maybe even a couple on your belly here. And just noticing like what is being called to release emotionally, relationally, ways of working, thinking patterns, somatic ways of relating to your body. And you don't have to pick 7. It's like this is where you get to really zone in. I call them the Jedi points or the power points. Because you know that on the other side of this, there's something more, even if you can't feel it, because you're on that turn, right on that motorcycle, and you can't see what's ahead. But if you lean in, even if it's scary, especially if it makes you feel vulnerable, you're on the right path. And if you can name something, write it down. And if you're not near something, write it down when you get home. This is why the practice of journaling and working with the 8 turns is so important. I forgot to mention earlier, one of the reasons for the 2-month gap here is I'm releasing all these things. I'm also, instead of doing more podcasts on the turns, I am doing and have been doing the Power Pauses, the Personal Leadership Edition. And so we just did the Spring Power Pause that helps you get really clear on and takes you through the whole life harmony assessment and adjustment. It will help you illuminate some of these patterns and some of the things that are wanting to shift for you. And so you can go to springpowerpause.com. We tape the live session. The guidebook will walk you through it. And it's a good, just like, base level. For those of you that like to go deeper in the mystical and the material, that's the flow, Feminine Wisdom Way Collective. That's still going strong. And we got to go a couple levels deeper into the heart. The Spring Power Pause will work just fine. And we open up enrollment every year for the Feminine Wisdom Way Collective at the beginning of the year when we do the Emerge process, and then also at the mid-year, I think we're going to open it up. I'm feeling that. So stay tuned. Make sure you're on my wisdom letter list. Just go to ChristinaRilo.com and you should be able to sign up there. Okay, so here's one last piece for this release to receive. What I'm noticing in the field, and tell me if this is true for you, is when I say the field, one of the gifts I get is I get to, whether I'm doing the one-on-one coaching with people, or I'm doing team coaching, or I'm just talking to people, I just start to see the patterns. And so many people have been saying to me, and I've been feeling this myself, it's like I'm coming back to the same thing again. Like, I can't believe I'm back to the same thing again. And here I am again. And I'm like, oh, okay, we have to remember this. I have to remember this. I can't believe I'm still having this experience where if you take your finger and you make a spiral, and you let that spiral kind of be like a slinky, where it kind of like it cycles up. Or sometimes I think, I don't know if DNA looks like this. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a spiral that goes up. It's like a sign of vertical growth and evolution. And so we're going to come around, and I'm doing this with my finger right now, just kind of do it with me. If you kind of put your finger in front of you and you just move it slowly, and if you keep it on that same horizontal plane, it will be like a merry-go-round. Oh my God, I'm back again. Try this. It's very cool when you do it somatically, just the same horizontal plane. I'm at the same consciousness. I don't want to be woke. I don't want to be awake. I'm just going to stay in my little constrained world where I feel safe. And we're so funny as humans. And I'm not going to see the connection between things, and I'm going to complain about this and that versus actually opening my eyes and seeing what's happening, because it's just easier this way. So it'll feel like that. You'll just be like, oh, it'll be like a merry-go-round. Now start to like move that finger slowly up, like as if you're moving up your spine, or you're moving up a vertical center point, and like your mountain, like you're going up. Like, isn't that interesting how this is like just like if you were riding the motorcycle? And don't go too fast, because you'll get seasick. So this is how evolution of our consciousness works, is if we're ascending, not by ascending like I'm going to be an aesthetic, spiritual blah, 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 who never eats pizza, drinks red wine, sometimes maybe too much red wine. But no, not like that. Like, well, I mean, if you don't want to drink alcohol, that's fine with you, or wine, it's fine with you. But I'm fine. But so what I'm talking about, it's not about having to like give up all of the pleasures of life. It's about our consciousness raising, and we do as our consciousness raises. And the yogic wisdom is you will change your fashion, your food, your friends, and then we added in fun. And just think about what might have been fun 30 years ago for you was not going to be fun for you, perhaps currently at your current level of consciousness. And so it's not about rising in our elevating in our consciousness to try to not have desires, or to not, whatever. It's to be more and more present, to be more and more conscious, to be more and more at choice, so that our frequency can be more and more love, more and more harmony, all the kinds of love, gratitude, compassion. I mean, compassion is just a form of love. I don't know why we feel more okay with saying compassion, but it's love. That's what it is. It all comes from the heart. So we could be more fully in our heart and our bodies, but our bodies not from like past experiences that have been traumatic to us or hard for us, because then that tips off and makes the heart go, ooh, 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 wobble, wobble, wobble. And then the brain go cray, cray, cray. If we can be with the feels that say, uh-oh, here I am, and this feels like what happened before. But then calm our bodies, and this is where we're going next. Calm our bodies, calm our hearts. The mind comes along. Calm the mind, calm the system, and we root in the second part, right? Reveal, to release, to receive. We root in to relax. That's the second part of the triangle, the line. Release to receive on the left, root in to relax on the right. And just put your hands out for a moment. And notice this. Be somatic with me here, you all. Like, come on, don't just, if you just wanted another podcast that was talk, squawk, squawk, this is not the place. This is a whole body experience, because otherwise, how are we gonna access the wisdom, right? And if you're like, Christine, leave me alone. I'm making pasta sauce or whatever you're doing. It's okay too. I don't want to bully you into it, but just kind of feel into it. If you put your hands out on this bottom of the triangle, okay, it's like what Christine is sharing is release to receive. So if I release this thing, whatever that is, there is something on the other side of this turn. And even if this turn feels like, oh my God, here I am again. Oh my God, here I am again. If I can take a breath and take a beat, and I can root in to relax, I can actually see I'm different. Whatever I'm interacting with is also different, or maybe it is still the same, but doesn't matter. You're different. So I can respond to the situation differently. But in order to do that, as I'm going on this turn, I have to feel the ground beneath me. I have to feel the air and smell the trees and know that there's others with me. So that root in to relax is really about making sure that as you go through this turn, both your own turn, the me, and we're going through this turn, we as a collective, because you're on the planet, unless you're going to get on one of the crazy billionaire boys who want to put you on send you off to Mars, one of their spaceships. Don't recommend. Stay. We want your presence here. There's good stuff here. And as Noah said to me the other day, I was feeling super bummed out about Easter and all of the things that are just happening with people distorting the teachings of, in my experience, the teachings of what Jesus, like, for example, would actually say. And I love the JC and the energy of true Christ energy, which is the same as true Buddha energy. And it's not even about it being a man. It's about this unconditional love, compassion, light, all of the things, and then taking it and distorting it. It just makes me so sad and so mad. And Noah's reminded me, and even watching these movies, of like, there's one tribe, part of Australia, where 90% of their people were killed in weeks. And just like imagine that, like somebody coming into where you live, into your village, and 90% of the people, the generations were gone. And not to bum y'all out, but they rooted in. Some of them didn't leave. I was watching this one call about this owl thing, and it was one of the tribes on Turtle Island, and there was a whole group of rebels who did not leave during the Trail of Tears, and they stayed in place. I think it was actually the Cherokees, now that I think about it, in North Carolina, where I am. They didn't leave. They stayed. And it was so great listening and watching it, because they were talking about their language, and how there's only 140 people who still speak that language, because that was part of the whole plan, was to get rid of the language, because language is sound. And then when I heard them speaking the sound, you all, I was just like, oh my God, like there's such wisdom in the sound. Like it was like their wisdom, their language resonated with the earth. This is the mystical piece. It was like, I'm like, that's like light language. Like in the language itself is embedded relationality, relationship to all life. And so, of course, those that wanted to colonize and uniform and control wanted that to go away. Now, there's benefit. We can all speak to each other, many of us in English. There's a benefit, but that could have been achieved in other ways versus killing 90% of people and keeping that language alive. I also watched one that was it was about Scotland, and it was Gaelic. We were watching something about that, and I'm like, oh, my nose, like, do you want to learn Gaelic? I'm like, well, we could just do it for fun. But it was just we went to go see that. So we went to go see I took a side note, coming back. We went to go see a Scottish band a couple of weeks ago, and they're from Scotland. And as soon as they started playing, I just started to cry. And my whole body and my heart just opened, and I could just feel that medicine coming in. And so this is this piece of rooting down to relax. So think of the metaphor here. The metaphor here are trees. And you're a tree, I'm a tree, and trees do the best when we root down into the ground, and we are also open to receive the sunlight and the water and the resources that we need. And trees work underground where we're connected. We hold each other together, and we talk and we communicate together. And this is one of the reasons I wrote Overwhelmed and Over It, and I continue to teach that work, is because this is what I think about root down to relax. A couple of things. So let me just kind of slow down and give them to you piece by piece. Okay, this is what it feels like to be rooted in to relax. Because in order to fully receive, we have to relax. And in order for us to have the intuition come in and the wisdom come in, we have to relax. When we are rooted in, we are clear. You are clear. You are centered. You are connected. You are sustained. You are retaining resources. So, right, when it rains, like for a tree, it retains some of that water in the water tablet, so it can, during dry times, pull up from that water tablet. That's like us, right? Doing our best to save money or having resources that are around for us, growing some of our own food, whatever those resources are. One of my heart and soul desires for the year is I am deeply and fully resourced in all ways. I find it very helpful to have intentions that I can remember and say again and again and again, because then it's like it's almost like it feels very much the mystical. It's like my friend Cheryl once said, she's like, Christine, you're making incantations. I know, it's kind of cool, isn't it? I bet it's like, I learned it from like a Harry Potter class on incantations. But I can remember it then. So if you can remember those things like that, they become like chants, an incantation comes from cantare, which means to speak. And the wisdom is when something is spoken, it starts to become into reality. And here we come back again to the language, right? It's like, do you notice this is all connected? And I can feel that in my body. It's very different than like, I need to have $20,000 in my savings account. I need to make this much money per month. And not that I don't know how much money, financial flow I want to come in every month, and how much money I put aside for taxes, and how much money I do, all the things. There's that. But when you start with the mystical, like I am fully and deeply resourced in all ways, it raises your vibration to a different frequency, because we don't know how those resources are going to come to us. And then when we're working as rebels, sacred rebels, to reveal the path for ourselves and others, I like to say we're working for the divine. We're working for whatever you want to call it, spirit, source, etc. And just like any job we have, we give energy, and we are supposed to be supported for that energy return. And if we're not, get a different job. But when you work for the divine, or you work for spirit, or you work for source, you work for wholeness, it's not that things are always easy, and that's not that there's not struggle. But sometimes when we're coming back around to the same thing, it's because there's something in there, that needs to be released so that we can receive. And then also really rooting down to feel where those resources, and what do you need What do you need in your rotation? So this is kind of the second question. So we're talking about resources right there. What do you need in your rotation and your rhythm to keep you clear, centered, and connected? And just think about it for like the next couple months. Like, remember, cyclical living and pathing is one practice of how we go through intense times and uncertain times. We break it down in time cycles. So again, not trying to be a power pause pusher here. The spring power pause does this for you, takes you through spring and summer, which is the opposite on the other side of in the southern hemisphere. But we use the fall, the spring, and then we'll do another one in the fall. And or in Feminine Wisdom Way Collective, we call it the March equinox, the June mid-year power pause. Like, we do it in 3 or 4 month increments. So to pick a next 3 months, like, just pick a season and really tune in here. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. What is the rhythm and the practices that you need in place so that you can feel rooted in? Practices create rhythm. So whether that's your daily practice, your weekly practices, where you're going in community, just pause here with me for a moment and just feel yourself like that tree. And imagine sending your roots down into this earth where you are both connected to the actual terra firma, the earth, the dirt, the clay, and the water. Earth and water are very powerful balancers, counterbalancers to fire. So you're really rooted into earth. So recall, I always say, root into what's real. So the earth is real. The water tablet under here is real. What are the practices that are going to help you really feel that grounding in that water? And also just feeling that trunk and rising up and letting the light in. We need tree, like the tree, we need light to stay radiant, to grow. What are the practices and places and spaces and people that are going to keep you bright and light during this next season so you can be centered and clear and feel connected? What's going to help you feel connected? Very important for those of us that are, I'm going to talk about sacred ripples that's going to be our last part here. But like, I'm really inviting you to not just listen to this podcast, but to actually be mindful about it and put these things into place or watch what's already happening. I'll share one or two of my own. I have another incantation for you all. Feel free to borrow it. Came out about 3 years ago, and during our emerge process that we do at the beginning of every year with this co-creative collective, and it was this. I spend meaningful time in places I adore. No, I spend meaningful time with people I adore in places and spaces I love to explore. I'll say it again. I spend meaningful time with people I adore in places and spaces I love to explore. You try it with me. I spend meaningful time with people I adore in places and spaces I love to explore. This is one of my heart and soul desires. And I encourage you, if you want to play with it yourself, that helps me root in to relax. So what does that look like? That's the mystical. What does it look like on the material? I just got back from a loop-de-loo around America. I went to New York City for a couple days with my friend and co-creator Liz, who's working on the Wiser project with me, and we had a salon in her flat in Manhattan with 8 amazing women. Oh my gosh, just exploring what it is that young adults need and how we can support that. Then I got on a plane and flew over to San Francisco and spent time with my friend Tracy, who's collaborating. We're collaborating together on taking all of the leadership work that I've put together on power, presence, and purpose, and all of her work, working inside the corporate system as a chief people officer together to start to do some things for people and leaders inside the systems. And so we spent a few days together having coffee and hanging out and just learning more about each other. And then I went down to a conference in Las Vegas, of all places, you all. I do not like Las Vegas. It's not my place. But my friend Tracy was there, my friend Eric were there, and they were speaking. And Tracy just said how much she loved this this conference Transform. And I'm like, well, let me go see what's going on in the people world and go spend time with 3,000 people and be in that energy field. And it was great. I did conferences the way I do them. I don't try to go and meet all the people. I don't have an edge, or I don't have like an angle. I'm just very open to meeting who I'm there to connect with. And it's usually, 2 handfuls, maybe a handful and a half. And all these magical experiences happened. And I came back clearer that there were a couple pieces of that release to receive that hadn't taken place yet, because of just some of the deeper parts of my own core wounding, which we all have on this planet. I don't know that we're ever done. I like to think of them more like tap roots. Like there are our root ball of our trees and the tap roots, and they're our most vulnerable places. Like even as I'm talking to you all, I can feel it at the base of my spine. And part of what's happening right now in this great turning catalyst is all of our tap roots it's like getting electrified. If you haven't been doing a lot of work on your tree system, I've been doing for 20 years, it might be more intense right now. And even for me, who's been, I breathe every day, I've meditated for 25 years, I've done many, many, many things, it's still hitting my tap roots. And I went back to, as many of you know, I've continued to work with the corporate people in the corporate space ever since I left. I'm just more of the wise woman who's been on the fringe, and you had to be able to find me for me to work with you and your teams. And that's because I had tried in 2019 or 2009, wasn't ready. The world wasn't quite ready for it. I came back in 2020 and still we're like, can't you just give me like a nice little tip or a strategy? Really weren't ready for the deeper wisdom. And I came back from that conference and I was just really clear. I'm like, and I got a very clear directive. It's time to bring the wisdom forth again. So I'm sharing this pretty vulnerable story here with all of you. No one says sometimes people don't know when I'm being vulnerable. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so that it can be true. But I'm sharing it's vulnerable for me for lots of reasons that I don't need to get into, but just to share that it is a vulnerable place for me, because I remember just sitting on my couch a couple days ago and I had to get really clear inside my body that I'm committed. I'm very committed to recommit so I could be devoted to my purpose, to my path, to my part, and to my people. To my people, the people I'm meant to be in this grove with, the simpaticos, the co-creators, the people that can come into this field that I've cultivated, for 20 years, and or that I can commingle my fields with other people, and we're just in these bigger fields that are people who have been here forever. You all, this is going to bring us into where we're going into. This last part is rebel to reveal. As I'm sharing this with you, this notion of field, right? And is that there's a long line of conscious evolutionaries and people who have stood for love for thousands of years, lineages of people, brigades of people. Someone could call them our ancestors, and they're here with us. I'm not going to go totally down that line, but I'm hoping I'm going to have someone who is much more steeped in that world than I am. I have my own relationship to this where I do feel connected to these different lines. And I have people who have passed over, they're over the Rainbow Bridge. And I feel, John O'Donohue is one of them. That my Celtic heart, that Scottish, and that Scottish, I'm just like, oh. But knowing he was here and listening to his books and reading his wisdom, especially on thresholds, makes me feel rooted into something. That there have been trees that have been here for way before I was ever here. And I'm just carrying that on. And so allowing yourself to feel that, there's of course your family, like your relative family is part of that for sure. And you're also part of something even bigger than that. Even if it's your profession, how you want to look at it. But if you look through the mystical, you'll find a lot more support and a lot more connection, as well as the material. Like I went to a conference. That's what I did on an airplane to Las Vegas, and came back and allowed all the mystical stuff to happen. So here's where we're going to wrap us up. And thank you all for staying with me here as we wrap up this third part. There is a feminine leadership archetype coming. I've known who it is. It is the advocate. And also, spoiler alert. And my plan is once I come back from this, I'm going to speak at a junior league gathering, well-being and leadership workshop in Palo Alto. They found me through an internet search. And I'm like, it's one of those things of like release to receive. And it'll be 200 women. And part of what I've released was needing to gather big groups of women. I'm like, I will go where the women are. I'll go where the people are, the humans are that are ready for the message. But it's not my job to fill a room with 200 people. I'm much more suited to working with small groups of people who are ready for deeper transformation or with leaders and their teams and that kind of stuff. And so this came to me, and I am going back. Third time's a charm, and I'm excited for it. It is the name of the talk is the subtitle to the book: "Embrace Your Power to Stay Centered and Sustained." And hopefully it won't be a talk, it will be an experience. I get 20 minutes, so I'm looking forward to that. But when I come back, because I'll have gone out myself and I will have returned from that voyage, and the advocate will be ready. And oh my God, you are gonna love her, because it is the sacred rebel inside of all of us. All right, so so I was sharing that because it seems like these episodes, since they are farther and further between, as I have needed space to do my own releasing to receive, and am concurrently also creating the next as I'm living the now, which is what we do as sacred rebels. That allows us to reveal, and we have to make the space. So just thanks for sticking with me here and tuning in as I go through this threshold shift. So rebel to reveal. And I'm going to put the word sacred. So it's like sacred rebellion in order to reveal. So sacred rebellion, we rebel. We use harmonic defiance, which is choosing to defy the systems, defy what the rules are, defy whatever isn't working. Not by raging, not by ranting, not by having to post that on social media. We just move forward and we do it. We don't ask for permission, we just do it. If you haven't read that part in chapter 12, Overwhelmed and Over It, great story in there around it. It's also about part of rebelling to reveal is staying focused on our part. Instead of trying to do it all, there's so many things still more and more like, oh my God, there's this and there's that and there's this and there's that. And your heart just can't take all of it. And that's part of the design. They just want to keep us overwhelmed, because if we're overwhelmed, then we'll never get anything done. Focus on your part. Keep a loose understanding and openness to what's going on. Focus on your part. Don't let the chaos take you away from what your part is. Don't go business as usual, because we don't have time for business as usual. Don't just be, I'm going to pull the covers over my head and tomorrow it's going to be okay. Like whether your catalyst is like, I haven't dated in 20 years and I'm really being called to go out there and start connecting and being vulnerable and being open. Sacred partnership in being in partnership, that's part of elevating the planet. The more people are in loving relationships, the better, if that's something that you want. But if it's calling you, you gotta move towards it. This is the thing about being like rebel to reveal doesn't mean be an asshole and rage and, and sometimes you got to have your fist up in the air. It means to stand up, to advocate for wholeness, to advocate for what we know is possible, to embrace our power, to be the culture creators, not just let someone come over and say, this is what this meant. This is what this person said. This is my, because you feel it. We feel it in our body. We're like, that's not right. That doesn't make any sense. And for those of us that have that rebel heart, that bodhisattva heart that Joanna talks about in Active Hope in the video, this is our time to with trees around us, with the resources that we need with the courage to release, to step past any fear, to not get stuck in how we have to figure it out, and to remember that we are the co-creators. So I'm going to just read this to you, this small passage here. And when we get to advocate, we're going to go into the actual, what that actually looks like. What does it look like in practice? And what is the energy and vibration of the advocate? It is not the self-sacrificing martyr advocate, I'll tell you that. It's also not the business as usual. And it's not the philanthropic kind where I have money and resources and the poor people don't. So I'm going to make sure that I give my money to the poor people. It isn't that people who have more access to financial resources aren't and shouldn't give money to provide resources to rebalance things. But there's a mentality, more than we're going to talk about today, called capitalistic philanthropy. And it's where the way of approaching philanthropy, which we see a lot in the nonprofit world, of this have to scrape and beg and ask for money. The whole system is it's wacky doodle. It's not harmonic, more than we can talk about today. But stay tuned, because there are new things coming that are really I've been waiting for 3, maybe 4 years to bring these forward. So stay tuned on all of these. Let's keep focused on Sacred Rebel. Okay, take a breath. Sacred Rebel, just let that land for a moment. The word sacred means devoted to wholeness, with respect to self and others, without violence. And see what this resonates with you, and how tuning into the lineage of Sacred Rebels might support you to move forward and turn in to that curve a little more. Okay, here's our ending. Sacred Rebels know that even if something has always been done in a particular way, a better way can always be found. Sacred Rebels question the way things have to be. They dare to dream of a healthier world based in more love than fear, where it is possible to live your dreams, manifest your heartfelt visions, and life is nourishing rather than a constant struggle or drain. Sacred Rebels believe in love and defy those that say you need to live in the real world. Sacred Rebels are living in the real world. Mystical, material, both are real. Theirs is a world of love, possibility, individuality, and freedom. Sacred Rebels refuse to be put down by those who are frightened of being truly alive. Sacred Rebels are obedient only to their spiritual passion and individual values, and the knowingness that they are here to be part of the collective whole. They're the brave souls who want to heal the world by shaking things up, daring to be unique, and celebrating what makes them different. Rather than fearing individuality, the sacred rebel chooses to walk the path that is perhaps less traveled, the path that holds more appeal because it has endless creative possibilities. Let's see. When you have the heart of a sacred rebel, your life is a work of sacred art in progress. It cannot be dictated to you by the expectations of others. Your essence is expressed in the world through the choices you make about how you wish to live. You're both the artist and the art. You are creating and being created on a daily basis. The extent of this process is determined by how much you are willing to rebel against what you have been taught, as well as your own preconceived limitation. This rebellion will allow your divine essence to manifest itself through you in the world. Sometimes the creation of a life path from a rebellious, loving heart is a subtle and cumulative process. Over months or years of choosing to live a particular way, we come to the realization that we have accessed a level of freedom and self-possession that we never thought possible. Sometimes the creation happens in leaps and bounds, and after feeling like nothing much was happening, we burst forth with energy, trailblazing our life into the next phase. Here we are, my friends. It's a fire horse this year, if you're listening to this live, but then we got a fire goat, and we are just in the turning. And I can go on and on and on. And this comes from Elena Fairchild's book, The Sacred Rebels, which is a card deck and a book. I just love it so much. I've been using it for probably since she published it, and it's one of the ones I love to use to help me keep on the path. So if you don't have Sacred Rebels Guidebook by Elena Fairchild, totally recommend it. And the one piece I'll just remind you here, this is what she said: creativity is essential for us to live rather than merely existing according to socially mandated regulations. So my friends, that crazy wisdom in you that knows it's your power, she knows, it knows, he knows, they know your path, they know your design. Root in, release to relax. Make sure you have your daily centering practice. We can't live without it in these times. Have ritual, have creativity, be on the land, be in the earth. Keep yourself regulated, mind, body, heart, and spirit. Put it into a rhythm. And then let yourself turn into the turn. Doesn't mean that you have to, through, but you have to stay active and present within it. I am here with you. I know there are others. Think of one or two right now and share this podcast with them. Invite them to be part of the Feminine Leadership Archetype series so that you all can play with them and you can see what they're like. You do the Spring Power Pause. Come to the Fall Power Pause. Join us for the Feminine Wisdom Way Collective Mid-Year Power Pause. There's opportunities here, and there'll be more from me coming this fall for those of you who are really embracing your leadership to co-create a different way in world and are ready to step into your next phase on purpose. So stay tuned, more to come, still in my own turn on all of those. But more than anything, share this podcast with another and talk about what came up and share what you're releasing to receive, what you need to root in to relax, and what your rebel heart is revealing to you. And I will see you next time I see you. And remember what the Hopi Elder said. This can be a good time. Let go of the shore. Let yourself get to the middle of the river. Keep your head afloat and look around for others like you. Much love, everyone. See you soon.